Ties US communications team, focusing on strengthening and guiding the network's advocacy, awareness raising, and communications efforts. Let's give him a warm applause, please.
Can everybody hear me from here? No? Can everybody hear me from here? Yes. Thank you. Buenos días. Mi nombre es Daniel Bremer. Gracias por la bienvenida. Oh. I feel like Tom Cruise in one of the movies that he does some motivating talks. So, good morning. Can everybody hear me through the lapel mic? Excellent. So my name is Daniel Bremer, and I'm really and truly honored to be here. And the truth is, I wouldn't be able to be here if it wouldn't be for my sponsors. Global Ties US, that's the company I work for. It's actually a nonprofit based in DC, and Global Ties US is a partner, has been a partner to the Department of State on public diplomacy initiatives for over 54 years. We basically support the Department of State in bringing leaders from around the world to the United States to connect and to connect with their counterparts. And when I talk about leaders, I talk about the whole gamut of leaders in environment, arts, culture, academia, etc. But the truth is that Global Ties US would be nothing if it wouldn't be for a network that looks very much like the BNC network in Latin America. Ours is called the Global Ties Network, and it's over 120 local organizations based in 45 states in the United States, and they do what you guys do abroad, but they do that locally. They serve as international hubs in their local communities. And so, Misael Portillo, whom I have the honor of accompanying us here, was visionary enough a couple of years ago to highlight to Jennifer, our president, who couldn't be here today, of the BNC network and how these two networks are very similar and work for the same purposes in just different sides of the same coin. And so, Misael, thank you so much for your vision and your leadership. We've been collaborating over the last 2-3 years. We had the pleasure of hosting Habla Express, which is kind of the conference where the Habla leadership gets together to plan this conference and the next one in 2 years. We had the pleasure of hosting you guys in DC, and we look forward to much more collaboration in this regard. Really, we're all in for the same mission, which is promoting American culture and American values and the acquisition of the English language. And so this is really exciting for me to be here. And now I'm going to jump into what I'm going to be talking about today, which is social media. So just a quick poll, social media users out there today. Higher hands, come on. Okay, so good. And this is for personal or professional use? Okay, good. So that's already one of the first barriers where people think, well, I have to have 2 accounts on Facebook, and then it just becomes like an unmanageable mess. So that's great that you guys are doing that. If you guys want to follow us, I'm at Daniel Bremer or at Global Ties US. I tweet about public diplomacy, technology, my kids, innovation, and the Mexican diaspora in the United States, which I also have the privilege of doing some work in. Anyway, so enough about me, enough about Global Ties. Again, thank you, Misael, thank you, Susan Bryan and her team for the invitation for us to be here. This is today's agenda. I'll try and get through this really quickly and really get into more of a discussion with you all, because I think that's really where the value is of these sessions. Why social media? This is a question that actually irritates me a lot, because it should be a foregone conclusion that you have to do social media these days. It has been asked and answered. And for those of you who disagree, well, this is all for you all skeptics in the room. I prepared some stats that will help you kind of give you some clarity. So 90% of young adults, 18 to 29 in America, are users of social media. So if you want to talk to that group, you have to be on social media. You can't email them, you can't phone them, you can't reach them by a flyer, you reach them by social media. There are 2.078 billion accounts, social media accounts. Now, I'll go through the social media map, and it's totally overwhelming, and it's understandable why there's 2 billion of those. But this just gives you a perspective of how people are looking to connect and communicate today, locally, in their countries, and internationally. 63%, and the keyword here is local searches. So it's really easy to find international services, international vendors, international products, whatever, but finding good quality local services is really complicated. And this stat right here is, if somebody is looking for you, but you don't have a local media, a social media presence, then you don't exist for these people. It's like you're like a fake business, okay, a phony business. And so this is super important. Okay, so that was a little bit of the global perspective about the importance of social media. Let's look at our region. Internet penetration in our region is 35%. Now, if you compare that with the rest of the world, it's not the highest, but it's a pretty high number given that we are mainly a developing countries region, right? 10.2% of all web users are from Latin America, and that's a huge market share of the world internet market. 10% of the internet market is in our country, in our region. And 82% of the web users, so a web user is different from a social media user, 82% of web users are actually using social networks. Okay. And this is, I think, one of the most important ones. 60% of all social media users in Latin America are ages 18 and 34. What are your target audiences? Do you know what your target audiences are? What's the age range there? Lower? Higher? Exactly that? About the same? Okay. So it was, I was guesstimating, so I'm not that far off. Great. 81 million people on Facebook. I mean, come on, people. That's just a wonderful number. 16% of the global Twitter users are from Latin America. I mean, Twitter has offices in more countries in Latin America than it does in other places around the world. I mean, that just tells you something right off the bat. Latin America is the fastest growing internet population in the world. So we're at 35% now. We were at 20 5 years ago, and 14 10 years ago. So internet penetration in our region, in our countries, is just going to continue to grow at a drastic rate. Okay, so conclusion, and let's put this one to bed forever and ever, is social media is where your customers are at. And if you want to talk to your customers, you have to be where they are. Period. So have we answered the question of, do we still have to do social media? Are you all sleeping or what's going on? Yeah, too much country dancing. Maybe I could do some steps up here. Okay. So the real question of social media is really, how do you do it with everything else that you're already doing? Because it feels like this totally separate thing that you have to take on, and it's just a lot of work, and then where's the payoff, and you're investing all this time. And the truth is, I'll try to share some tips and tricks that we do at Global Ties, some of the things that we share with our network, who are, like I said, very similar organizations like yours. Some are even 100% volunteer run. They run from, one employee or a volunteer to, 30, 40 people at one of these, our centers. So there's a lot of similarities in the BNC network and the Global Ties network. These are some of the things that we've shared with them in the past, and we think it's working. And then the other one is, where do you do social media, right? That's a very important question. And the social media landscape is really overwhelming. And you can get carried away in trying to jump onto every new social medium that comes across your email. But the truth is, you don't have to do that. And I'll go into that in just a second. So I want to take just 5 minutes, or even less. Actually, let's do 3 minutes, so one per question. I want you to think about these 3 things, okay? I want you to think about your audience. I asked you earlier if the 18 to 34 range was something of kind of like the range that you're in. But if you've already answered that question, answer the question of who's the secondary audience that you want to talk to. You know, do you need to be talking to parents to convince the parents so that they enroll the students, their kids in the courses and offerings that you're doing? I want you to think about your objective. We always forget the why. And the why is super important when you're putting out a message, any kind of message, print, online, offline, verbal, whatever. You always have to come back to the why and understand why the heck are you doing this? Are you trying to drive registration? Are you trying to drive awareness? Are you trying to promote a value? What is it that you're trying to achieve? And that's a question that you need to go back and answer. And then thirdly, just reflect a little bit upon what are you already doing? What is it that you're already doing in terms of communication efforts? This can be flyers, this can be information sessions at schools or universities, it can be your tabling at an event, or you're exhibiting at an exhibition, whatever. I want you to think about these three things, jot them down for me, 3 minutes, and then we'll continue the presentation. I'm not hearing the burning of the erasers and the pencils.
Yeah, they're born and they're like of a baby going, yes. Yeah, on a magazine.
How about we call time? How are we doing? 1 more minute? Okay, so time. Anybody want to share something real quick to the audience? Somebody from the back, because I know back always likes to either be working on paper airplanes or sleeping. Anybody want to share? Audience. Audience other than, go ahead. Young professional adults. Excellent. Okay. Back there? Somebody? No? Nobody? Okay. Fair enough. Point taken. Anybody here? Okay. Excellent. We have a very participative class today. So objective. Anybody want to work on objective? Anybody want to share their objective? Excellent.
Make a difference.
Make a difference. So it's a good objective, but you want to try to be specific in your objective because that's very general. You want to say, okay, so I'm sending out a newsletter. We're putting in 8 man-hours, woman-hours, or man-hours into this. What is the result that we want to get out of this? We want to make sure that we're increasing registration by 30%.
Okay, all right. Taken from the fact that they are not managing the language to completion, understanding, and if possible, new perspective in jobs.
Excellent. So you're talking about like a retention. You're trying to recruit, retain,
The whole
and
deal.
excellent. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Going
So those are all individual objectives, and they all need to be addressed differently, right? And there's different language and different calls to action that you're going to be including in those communications. We have one more hand up there. I think, yes, you, exactly. Yes, go ahead. Was it you? Yes.
Yes, I was, but I didn't feel quite clear what she said. Maybe I'm going to repeat it now. But I think we can use it to inform people what we're doing and also to know what they want to do. For example, we can, like do surveys or ask questions to also get information from our customers or whatever.
Excellent. So I think getting information out is always great, but everybody's trying to get information out just like you are. So that first objective that you mentioned, try to be more specific and say, so my mailing list currently is 300 people. We want to increase our mailing list to 350 or something like that, so that your metric is actually measurable, and so that you know for yourself that you're actually hitting your objective. That second one that you said, oh, we want to receive feedback. That's very correct, and you can say you can measure that with your surveys, right? I had another hand up there, and then we're going to move on. Yes.
Yeah, pretty much to inform, as she said, but also to catch the attention and eventually let the person identify with your brand itself.
Excellent. So
Eventually become a customer of yours.
I think you saw my presentation because you're jumping ahead of me. But you basically the customer journey. You want customers to come from raising awareness to have them become advocates, and we will touch upon that when we talk a little bit about metrics. I won't go into metrics today because that's a whole presentation in and of itself, and it's super complicated. And I think what we want to get started today is just thinking about setting your objectives, setting your audiences, and then with that you can start building out some of the metrics that you want to start using, okay? So, in current efforts, can anybody share some cool or not cool current efforts that you're doing? I have my favorite student right here. You're getting an A, by the way.
We have flyers, radio, TV, advertising, normal telephone, newsletter, and brochures.
What was that telephone?
Normal telephone.
So you actually call people up. Wonderful, wonderful. Excellent, okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to share that in the last 3 years, we cut down more than 60% all our advertising that was not digital.
That was not digital.
Our budget was cut down more than half, and we had no impact in the amount of students coming in. That means it did not diminish. Actually, it increased, and we reached out to different markets.
So let me just reconstruct this. So somebody came to you, cut your budget 60%, and said you don't have this money anymore.
Nobody
you guys decided it. Okay.
We
Got it.
said there's no
Enough.
point on doing this like this because our goal and the people we're looking for are not reading the newspaper or anything similar.
Excellent.
So let's just go digital.
That's something really important. Did everybody get that? So what is it? What did you guys do? What did you move to?
We are on Facebook. We have it's like a web page activating everything that has to do Twitter, Facebook, everything goes digital.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I think you have to come up here and do my presentation for me then, because I have nothing else to show you. So anyway, this is something. Oh, okay. More participation. Yay. Okay.
One more. We use in Colombia, a lot of us use movie theaters to advertise our.
Interesting.
Yes.
So, and this is a partnership that you do with a local movie theater chain, and
It's rent time. You
okay.
have to pay for it, but it's very profitable.
It pays off.
Yes, it does.
Excellent. Okay. And are you marrying that to your digital strategy?
Excuse me?
Are you marrying that to your digital strategy? Okay, so you have some Facebook or some links, some short links, and what are the metrics that you're getting back from that?
I can't answer that at this point. Can you? No.
Give me 1 second. I have a question right there. Go ahead.
We also, in Colombia is also a very radio-oriented country, so we've been doing alliances with radio stations, popular radio stations, to do like barter agreements. So we provide them services, they provide us radio time, and we have seen an increase in our communication and registration.
Excellent. But the radio effort is also being married to what you're doing in social media.
Sure, and we're also doing, we're starting to do like short podcasts with
Well, that's awesome. That's great. That's wonderful. Right here.
Radio show versus CNN, Microsoft Center of Nicaragua.
Nicaragua,
It has its own Facebook page.
Okay.
And the interaction was leading somehow to the Financial Center Facebook page. And we also pay advertising on Facebook to direct them to our web, which is interesting because since we started to pay advertising in Facebook to direct them to our web, the visits of our web went up.
Excellent. So, so this is why I wanted to get you guys thinking. It's obvious that some of you are already doing this very intentionally, but your efforts, digital, in person, offline, in print, they should all be matched up together. There should be some harmony between the three of them, and it's as simple as sometimes just including a link. And I'm not talking just about the Facebook icon or the Twitter icon, but like a short link that is easy to read, easy to memorize, so that people can jump on and generate that traffic that you're looking for. Go ahead.
I want to share just a recap right now what's happening around the capital is providing internet access in public transportation in buses. So companies, they pay a fee, monthly fee, kind of to support the Wi-Fi access on the public buses.
That's wonderful.
So what happens is you get a bus, that age group from 18 to 23 or 4, most of them, they have a smartphone, but they don't have the internet connection. So what it will happen is they will go and they will see our ad on the Centro Cultural, 20-second ad. They will basically have to see it, and then after they see it, they will have, access to the internet. So that's a really neat way of, advertising, and also giving the opportunity to all these people to have internet access while they're basically traveling from their home into the homes.
Excellent, excellent. That's a great example, and it's obviously you've already kind of linked those two efforts together. So here's has anybody heard of Generation Z? Generation Z? Okay, people, we've all failed at this because Generation Z is what follows millennials. If you're still talking millennial, we're out of date. Today, we have to start talking about Generation Z. Generation Z is the next generation that's going to be working, that are going to be our next classes of students, okay? There's a lot of literature. It starts basically around, so the date where they were born is around the 2000s. 1994. It's right there. It's just a little bit not unclear. 2000. That's Generation Z. That's your next class of students. You have to start thinking intentionally about Generation Z. Keep serving millennials as you're doing. I know we just figured them out because we just learned this term 3 years ago, but Z is what's next, and they have a totally different way of consuming and and receiving information and processing it and whatnot. I think there's an article in the New York Times, September 2015. That's one of the first times that it's formally published Generation Z. So I would urge you to go back to that and read up on it. And when you're thinking about your audiences, remember that first question I asked you? Start thinking about Z. Okay? So, so you're going to have to shift your strategy. Yes, go ahead, sir.
I'm really interested in Generation C because my oldest son is 14 years old, and I've been kind of following a lot of what he and his friends think.
Yeah.
What findings can you tell us about Generation C?
I'm not a specialist. I've just figured out the millennials. No, so I wanted to flag this for you guys because as I was putting this presentation together, and your audiences are very different from our audiences. We bring established and emerging leaders from around the world, usually at the age of after 21, 25, so they're already probably done with college. But your class is just a totally different group of individuals, and today you have to start thinking about this group. But they're all very, very. So if millennials were tied to their phones, this is a generation that was born with their phones in the amniotic sac. So all you just have to be thinking about is just the more digital version of it. Okay. And there's some really cool infographics that compare it. Just go on images.google.com and do a search for Generation Z, and you'll find tons of information that really compare, in terms of consumption modes and all kinds of different things. So Generation Z. Do you guys know where your target audiences hang out? No? Have you thought about this? Do they hang out on their phone at home?
Now the park, Pokemon Go,
They do what? Pokemon Go, yeah, they do indeed. How can we get Pokemon Go on this thing? So Pokemon Go is crap, okay? That's my personal and professional opinion of it. What is amazing about Pokemon Go is that it was able to commercialize augmented reality. Augmented reality has been around for like ages, okay? Tons of museums tried implementing that, but who goes to a museum and wants to see the museum through their phone? But it was a super enriching experience. But nobody had been able to bridge that gap between the commercializing of augmented reality. So there's a lot coming down with virtual reality. There's a lot of coming down with 360-degree videos and augmented reality and all kinds of stuff. That's really exciting. That's the frontier. And I'd love to have a conversation with you guys about that. Global Tides is starting a foundation where we're going to have a social innovation lab that's going to be doing research and testing and piloting on these kinds of initiatives. So another opportunity for the BNC network and the Global Tides network to work together on. But anyway, going back to my question. So where do your audiences hang out? No, I'm talking in the digital space. Facebook. Okay, so is everybody here on Facebook? Snapchat. That's a good one to figure out. Excellent. So you know where they are. Are you there? Mainly yes. I'm seeing yeses, nos. I'm not hearing a uniformity here. So this is what you really have to work on. And if you look at this is the social media landscape, okay? Did anybody's socks just fall off? So I'll try to point out a couple of things. So you have social gaming, you have social Q&A, you have, I can't read that, URL shorteners, you have social travel networks. I mean, look at the social media landscape. Imagine trying to covering that. You can actually get this. This map yourself, and all of these individual social media networks are linked. So feel free to download it from there. You just have to give your email away for free. So it's not mine, by the way. So I'm not collecting it, but it's a great resource to kind of get an idea of how overwhelming this field is. And then if you try to match up all this information with who uses it in the world and what demographics use it and all that good stuff, it becomes really complicated really quickly, okay? So just stick to these, okay? You've got your Facebook, you've got your Twitter, your LinkedIn. For some of those of you trying to strengthen that pipeline of, I want you to know about languages, but then I want you to move from language acquisition into thinking about this as part of your profession and how this makes you a more qualified global professional. That's LinkedIn for you right there. There's great exercises on using LinkedIn, developing your LinkedIn portfolio, your LinkedIn profile as a class assignment. I mean, why aren't we doing that with our students? Are we doing that with our students yet? Somebody's doing that here. Anybody else? No. That's a great class assignment. Class assignment to develop your own LinkedIn profile to get it online. And instead of having people write essays about stuff that nobody's going to read, no offense to essays and writing assignments, this is a real useful writing assignment that will help students think about their profession and their career. And where you can really have an impact on making that difference. What's that? We all know that. What's that robot? That's Reddit. Now Reddit it's a beast. Okay. Reddit is a network of communities. Okay. Anybody here think that hashtags are overwhelming? I'll repeat my question, because I think some folks are not hearing. Does anybody here think that hashtags are overwhelming? Okay. Why? Because you have the freedom to create them, right? There's just so much creative freedom there that it's scary. So Reddit is even scarier, but I don't want to scare you away, because you have the power to create communities, and basically you create a channel that's reddit.com/abla2060. And people that are interested in issues that somehow popped up on their screen with Abla, you can have discussion forums there with your peers. They're all open, by the way, so that's something important to be mindful of. You can have your students have discussions in a public forum and interact with students from other places around the world and have discussions on English. You can have them share pictures and other things that are, obviously age appropriate and whatnot. But it's a great, it's a community, it's a discussion forum. Think of like a Craigslist. Everybody familiar with Craigslist? Okay, so I won't get into Craigslist. Reddit. This is Instagram. Everybody have an Instagram profile? Yeah? What types of pictures are you posting on your Instagram profile? Landscapes? Do students like landscapes? Exactly. You can raise awareness about the American culture. You can show a picture of the Capitol and have that be a discussion around that, right? Exactly. The Grand Canyon, Las Vegas, all kinds of stuff. So think about how, what you like and what you like to post on your social media feeds isn't necessarily what your audiences are going to be consuming. So if you're doing this to get to your audiences, we already defined our audiences, we already defined our objectives. So don't post a picture that doesn't hit your audience and that doesn't fit your objective. Because then you are wasting your time. And you're making your feed unsexy. And you want to try to keep it sexy for people to go visit it, right? Yes? No? I feel like I lost like half the room here. So, Snapchat. So, it's a great medium. I think only really wealthy companies have been able to figure out how to use Snapchat because they can buy the advertising. Snapchat is very personal. I think it's appropriate for maybe within some guidelines for a teacher to have a Snapchat account to share experiences related to the classroom experience with a student or something like that. But it just gets tricky. It gets tricky. Because it's so personal, because it's supposed to be personal, things can become inappropriate either way. And Snapchat's foundation was on, it was a sexting platform when it started. So to me, it's never going to get rid of that stigma. And then YouTube. Who uses YouTube in this room? Okay, so what are you posting on YouTube? Okay, so who's your target audience there? Institutions. And are institutions consuming that? Are they watching it? Excellent. You're hitting your goals. What else are we putting on YouTube? Go ahead.
Short videos from our students producing oral production.
Testimonials.
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. So who's your audience there? Who?
Children 7 to 10.
And they're watching it?
Yes.
Excellent. Good. Who else is using YouTube in a different way? Are you using YouTube to share relevant topics with your students?
Yes.
As an educational tool. So using YouTube less as a content production tool for yourself, but as a content sharing tool where you're bringing relevant content to your students in a medium that they like to consume. Yes? Okay. I saw a hand, I think. Yes, go ahead. Can you speak up? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're using YouTube, we're connected to Hangouts in different cultural experiences. For instance, we had a jazz group, kind of big into jazz. And what we did is we did a live stream through Facebook, through YouTube, showing the concert. So, because it was like very crowded, a lot of people wanted to see it. So we streamed it and then it was saved on Facebook.
Excellent. Excellent. share in other YouTube views? Okay, very well. I'll move on. So, this is where I want you to just think about again that first question that I asked you. Is there something that you're doing that you're not connecting to your social mediums? You don't need to answer that for me. You want to answer that for yourself. This is where the real work takes place, because this is the secret. If you're already doing efforts of cabling, if you're already putting flyers on buses, or putting flyers in museums or schools, or information sessions, or just whatever efforts that you're doing to disseminate your programs, your products, and your services, but you're not bringing them back into your social mediums, and you're not pushing the same content through your social mediums, then there's a disconnect there between in your communication strategy. And really, social mediums don't require an additional type of work that you have to be doing separately. It's really, you just have to do some repurposing. So if you're already spending time on producing a flyer, that content is pretty much reusable, probably not in it, oh, let me just upload this PDF and share it on my Facebook page, because it's not attractive. But there's snippets in there that you might want to share out, or questions that you might want to put out to engage the audience and start having a conversation, so that they're coming back to your page to see what their friends said, or that they're coming back to your page because you put out a teaser of, hey, big theater production, big English production coming soon, and you're sharing some sneak peek pictures. You're taking some sneak peek pictures anyways behind the scenes for some other purpose, personal probably or something. So use that to kind of sneak peek stuff, and then you start engaging that audience to start coming back to your page on a more consistent basis. You just have to be regular about it. So again, don't reinvent the wheel. Just take what you're already doing and tweak it, repurpose it slightly so it fits your goal, your audience, and the medium that you're using. Okay? So Instagram, don't do a PDF. It's pictures. Okay? It has to be an image. Maybe slap some text on the picture and say, hashtag coming soon. Whatever. Just you really don't have to spend an additional set of hours on working on content that's specific to social mediums. That's basically what I want to try to say. So, this is the part about metrics. Simply Measured is a great service. It's expensive. I wouldn't recommend it because you have to cover some of the basics before. But we were talking about the engagement pyramid earlier, right? So in the beginning, you're trying to get awareness. Then you just raise awareness. Then you want to have people to consider your product or service over some other person or some other vendor. You want them to make a decision, obviously, to pick your product, right? You want them to adopt it. That means, say they're in the classroom, they're coming to, they've enrolled one semester and they're coming back for another semester, and then you want them to become spokespersons for you. These are the students that you send off to their schools, back to their schools, and you say, hey, can you promote our program? Can you use your Snapchat account to become an advocate for this program? So I wanted to show two things here that are important. So one is the engagement pyramid. This is very common in kind of in just communications and engagement strategies. But the other piece is this piece right here. So how do you measure the steps of the engagement pyramid, right? So KPI stands for Key Performance Indicators. You don't need to learn that. It's marketing lingo that doesn't make sense. But you really want to focus on, okay, so when we're talking about, my goal is raising awareness about my BNC with the target audience of 18 to 34-year-olds. What I'm trying to look for is that my impressions on Facebook are high and that my reach is high. If I'm not doing that, then I have to change my strategy. Does that make sense? Can I get like this? If not an oral, okay, thank you. Consideration. So people are seriously considering your product or your service. What are you looking for? You're looking at the number of engagements and the types of engagements. Are these likes? Are these comments? Are these questions that people are asking on your posts? Okay? Decision. I have decided to enroll. Okay, that's a link click. That's super easy. Okay, so this presentation will be uploaded to the Outlaw Facebook page, so you can come back to it. You can also search for it at Simply Measure, and it's called Measuring Social Media Metrics, I think, or the key of social media metrics. Anyway, just, use this language for your goal setting, and then use the social KPIs over here to measure the impact that you're having. Because it feels great when you're like, okay, I set this goal, and I'm accomplishing it, right? Don't we like winning? Jeez, people. Can we get some more coffee for these people, please? Seriously, you all had decaf or something, man. Okay. So are we good with this? Any questions, comments about this yet so far? No? Okay. So that's it. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And I'm going to be sticking around if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about anything that I said that was inappropriate. So thanks. Good night.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Let me give you this token from Tlaquepaque, Guadalajara. Jalisco. And your diploma. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah.